So Toni Morrison, an American author, writes that stories will save us. Think about that for 1 second. Stories will save us. I think what she means is that stories have a way of exposing truths, tragedies, and hope about the human experience that allow us to better understand it for ourselves. Okay, so that shouldn't be news to anyone here, right? We're all communications professionals, whether you're a journalist, a marketing professional, a social media strategist, you name it, storytelling is at the heart of what we do. But as we've all seen, storytelling is no longer an industry's trend, it's an industry expectations. Not only within the communications industry, but also when I go to buy my yogurt in the morning, right? There's not just a list of ingredients. I pick it up and I can scan its QR code and meet the farmer who harvested the sugar, or the woman who created the blueberries. I want to show you guys a video about an organization, it's not the Smithsonian, which is where I work, who used storytelling to evoke a relationship with the audiences that increased awareness and inspired action.
Hello. Bonjour.
Très très mignon. Allô?
Le commandant et toute son équipe espèrent que vous avez passé un agréable moment.
I mean, are you kidding me? Right? It's Google, it's a search engine. Yet I watch that and I'm like crying, I'm laughing, I'm sharing it with my friends. What's happening is I'm creating a relationship with an audience that is inspiring and active and makes them want to engage with my brand beyond its traditional use. Are we all with me so far? I want to see like lots of head nodding and smiles and yes. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit more specifically about what I do. I work for an organization called the Smithsonian Institution. I'm a brand strategist for them. Raise your hand if you've heard of the Smithsonian. Okay, keep your hands up. Now, keep them up if you understand what the Smithsonian is as an organization. Okay, I think that at least half of you are lying, and I'm going to prove it in a few slides. So the Smithsonian is the world's largest museum, research, and education complex. We're primarily known for our physical destinations, our museums in Washington, D.C., but we also have museums in New York. We have research centers all across the country. We're in 156 international locations doing incredible work with protecting endangered species, protecting languages, cultural heritage. If you name it or you have like some kind of weird interest, I promise that we have something that can feed that desire. The truth about the Smithsonian is that it's very well known. The name Smithsonian is really well known throughout the United States. And because of that, we didn't have any marketing staff that dealt with the Smithsonian brand for 156 years. We were founded, you need some context, we were founded in the 1800s. Think about that. I was one of the first people hired for our organization to deal with marketing, and I came on 4 years ago. That's incredible, right? And it created a really large challenge for us. Because what we found was that people knew our name, but we weren't marketing or positioning ourselves strategically. So in 2014, we set out and we said, okay, we need to start thinking about ourselves a little more strategically. Yes, people know who we are as an organization. They understand that we are a brand that exists and that we're good. But let's understand what people think about the Smithsonian. So we went around the country. I promise this is going to get to podcasts and branded content. Just bear with me for a second. We went around the country and we asked different groups of people. The one that I'm going to show you, this video, is going to be mothers from around the United States. And we asked them a very simple question. We said, if the Smithsonian Institution was a person, describe to us what that person would be like. And this is the response.
I'm envisioning like somebody that's like really old, like white hair. Maybe someone that has traveled.
He would be like a scholar, an older man with gray hair and a cornpipe and a smoking jacket and tweed.
They would have one of those mustaches that curls out. Colonel Sanders mustache, bow tie, pinstripe suit.
Condescending, patronizing.
Somebody would probably intimidate the crap out of me. He'd be so all-encompassing with his knowledge of everything. If he took off his tweed jacket and put down his pipe and, came up to the bar and was watching a hockey game with me, he'd be less intimidating.
Yikes, right? As a brand, we had some very serious thinking that we had to do. And so we set to work and we did some research to really dig in and better understand what audiences thought of us. And we found something really interesting. National research shows that 9 out of 10 Americans, when you say Smithsonian, they know what that is. Anyone who works in marketing is probably thinking that's incredible, and it really is. But then when you dig a little bit deeper and you ask people, so tell me, just like I did with you, what is the Smithsonian? Only 4 out of 10 Americans can answer that correctly. That's pretty alarming as both a human and as a marketing professional, right? It means that people, they like us and they know who we are, but they don't actually know why that is or who we are as an organization. So as a brand strategist, I spend a lot of time both thinking about who our audiences should be and what kind of content we can create that reaches them, but more specifically, how can that content increase awareness for them of the Smithsonian brand and then inspire action for them to either get involved or learn more, et cetera. So now we have this research, we have a better understanding that Americans know us, they don't totally understand who we are as an organization, and we say, okay, someone say that's a challenge, I'm gonna call it an opportunity. What can I create? And I apologize, this presentation is really about branded content. I'm also very happy to speak with you out there about audience segmentation and how we actually created groups that we were gonna reach, which is really fascinating. So one of those groups were knowledge seekers, or people who really love getting new information. They're really inspired. They're that friend when you're at a dinner party that you hate because they just came back from, they just came back from a exotic language class or a really cool digital summit in Warsaw or whatever it is, and they're just, you can't keep up with them. And we realized that that group loves podcasts. So why not create a podcast? Why not try to create something that increases awareness of our brand? So this all happened when I was has anyone here rode the metro in Washington, D.C.? Okay, so you know that it is an experience, to say the least. And to help make that time pass faster, I listened to podcasts. And I was listening to this one called Freakonomics. Anyone listen? I see some head nodding. Okay, that's good. Yep, love it. And I realized that what makes a really compelling podcast is good storytelling, good storytellers, and that kind of like aha moment where I learned something new and I'm really excited about it. Those are things that I experience every day at the Smithsonian, but we just weren't talking about it on a podcast. This is something that we had to do, something that we should do. So if you can tell, I'm a very low energy person. Yes, you guys laughed, you're paying attention, that's awesome. And I ran into my office, I did 3 laps around my supervisor's desk, and I pitched her this idea, and she said, Tony, this is great, I'm really excited about it, but I need you to help me not visualize it, help me conceptualize and understand what it is that you're talking about. So this is not me, but it kind of looks like me a little bit. I went into a closet, I called a curator friend of mine, and we created a prototype that I don't have today. It's really funny in retrospect, and to be totally honest, not very good, because I am not an editor, I am not, I don't have the tactical hard skills to create a podcast, but what it did that was incredible was allow my supervisor and senior leadership to understand what it is that we were talking about. Because some people, they don't understand what podcasts are. You tell them it's a radio show, they kind of get it. But a big takeaway from this experience for me was that people need, even if it's just a baseline, benchmark, very basic understanding, talking about it is one thing, but if you can actually show them, like, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, and it's really good, throw me a little bit of money, and I'm really gonna punch it in the face and make it incredible. So luckily, that was the case. we got out of the closet and into a recording studio where we conceptualized a new podcast from the Smithsonian called Side Door. And I thank you all in advance for subscribing and sharing it on social media and writing a review. That was also a joke. Thank you. And I'm going to share it with you, but the idea is it's a show that connects different stories from across the Smithsonian to universal topics. So for example, let's take this idea of technology. There are stories all across the Smithsonian that talk about technology and actually connect to each other. For example, we have a cell phone curator at our National Museum of Natural History. We have a video game artist at our Contemporary Art Museum. And we have a curator of time at the American History Museum. All of those stories actually relate to technology and inform and inspire how we think about it. It's pure branded content. Oh God, I hope this doesn't go online and then it will, and then people who listen to the show are gonna stop listening to it. But what it does is people come for the storytelling, right? They're like, wow, Smithsonian, I've heard about it. These are really interesting stories. A cell phone curator, wow, that's so cool. I had no idea that the Smithsonian had that. It's directly addressing the problem of increasing awareness for our brand. I'm gonna play like a little bit of an episode for you. I apologize, I host and produce it, so you're hearing a lot of me.
I'm Megan Dietrich, and this is Side Door, a podcast from the Smithsonian. Today, we bring you 3 stories about trickery. Imposters who misrepresent themselves take over, all to get what they want. My co-host, Tony Cohn, is going to begin with an unexpected expert in sexual deception, the orchid.
These wily plants are masters of disguise, coming in all kinds of unique, sometimes even weird forms.
A friend of Charles Darwin's sent him one of these plants.
That's Tom Miranda, an orchid specialist. He's showing us around the greenhouses of the Smithsonian Gardens.
When he took it out of the box, he famously uttered, "Good heavens, what insect could suck it?" because of the long nectar tube with the nectar just down here at the bottom.
Tom knows all about why orchids have these strange devices. There's almost 30,000 species of them. Some have big, beautiful flowers, and some actually don't look like flowers at all. But there's a good reason for that. It's because orchids have co-evolved to attract a single pollinator. So each species of orchid uses its own trick, through sense or color or look, to bring in a bug or bird. And Tom has seen plenty of different adaptations. The Smithsonian is home to some 9,000 orchids. But the best place to see them may actually be in his garage. That's where Tom keeps his own collection, which has as many as 2,000.
I'm told by my neighbors that the police department comes by my house regularly to check and see what might be under those grow lights that they can see from the street. What they don't realize is that the orchids themselves are quite a bit more addictive than marijuana.
All right, I'll leave it there. So you can see what's happening there is it's storytelling, right? All we're doing is serving audiences, a very specific audience, what it is that they want. Very smart, short, concise stories from a wide variety of topics that all inform and challenge how we think about a single thing. Also, raise your hand if you knew that Smithsonian had a garden unit. Oh yeah, one back there, nice. But now, our 50,000 listeners to each episode have an understanding that Smithsonian Gardens exists. Not only does it exist, but we have really quirky people who work there. That's actually another really good point. The beauty of Side Door is it actually lets the stories come from the individual who's doing the work, which I think is really important and underrepresented, that's not a word, in the branded content world. We're letting our own experts talk about the work that they're actually doing. It connects what are perceived as really inaccessible ideas to a fun, kind, accessible person who's actually working with that. This is just, this is like kind of, not bragging, but this is some of the success that we had with the show. And we had never done anything like this before. It was a huge experiment for us. We were like, does anyone listen to Serial, or have you listened to Serial, the podcast? If you, it's amazing, you should. We were like under serial for a little bit on the charts, which is, this is the top 10 podcast. That was incredible exposure for us. We have a social media following. We were on the 50 best podcasts of 2016. I don't tell you this to brag about this podcast or this Smithsonian brand. It's more so that you can understand what can happen, the opportunities of taking a risk with branded content and storytelling. I was really fortunate that through that proof of concept, I had supervisors and people that I work with who believed in this idea and said, why not? Sure, take a risk. I really want to return to this idea of storytelling that we started with in the very beginning. Well, Toni Morrison said that stories will save us. It's really, truly my belief that in our industries, stories will shape us. Thank you.